It's up in the air and thrown. It's picked up. There he is to the end zone. He comes down with it. Outrageous, 31 yards. McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl. He's got it. Rams are on top.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we've got a Super Bowl review, not a preview, as I did put in my YouTube thing. Yet exactly, smack of the head. Had to delete that. An extra 30 minutes wasted. Today again we're joined by Aeron Nix. Jeremy Miller was going to join us, but I think he's rubbing down Ben Roethlisberger at this moment. So
he's rubbing something down, but it ain't Ben Roethlisberger. Plus, you don't want to be running. You don't want. Let's be real, man. You don't want to be rubbing down Big Ben with the accusations of it. If anything, he's the one to be rubbing down other people too much, fam.
Absolutely. So last night, big game, obviously. Just give me a rundown on where you think things went right for the Rams, where things went wrong for the Bengals.
Well, we all know now that the Rams are Super Bowl champions. First of all, Matthew Stafford, fucking thrilled for him. I have been speaking for years on end about how much of a man crush I have of Matthew Stafford, how much of a hard worker. He's the guy who runs through walls. I'm so pleased for him. I predicted the Bengals, but I didn't really have a dog in the fight, you know. But the first order of business is got to talk about Mr. Donald, you know. Like that's the premier pass right. Him and Von Miller came to play. They did exactly what they were supposed to. Now, to be fair to the Bengals, they got plenty of penetration, actually. They did quite well. They got to Stafford a little bit, and they certainly made life difficult for him. It came down to very, very little. You know, it really did. Like, it's not like the Bengals didn't turn up. It's not like the Bengals didn't have a good game, but the real effectiveness here was just a combination of everything. Everything the Rams had in terms of weapons, whether it be on offense or defense, was brought to the pie. Aaron Donald is getting fucking exposure. He's getting through the line. He's getting to the quarterback. So is Von Miller on the pass rush. On the offensive side, Stafford was hitting. Cooper Kupp made some seriously insane plays in this game. And people might forget it because he didn't go off like he has done in other games as much. People might sort of be reluctant to sort of remember his game. I'll tell you who had a really special game right up until the knee injury was Odell Beckham Jr. He was on fire. He was proving himself to be that big mega star that we all expect him to be. And it was heartbreaking. He might miss all of 2022 with that knee injury. You know, that's suspected ACL, something along those lines. And we all know that ain't something to mess around with. So everything hit. And to be fair, the Bengals played an excellent game of football. And there are a couple of flashpoints, big decisions. Jalen Ramsey, right? So, you know, there was no call on the offensive pass interference. And this is what I mean about balance. I talk about this in so many different things on so many different podcasts. Wherever there's this bad story, there's always a good story, or wherever there is, you know, conflict, there's conflict on the other side. And people choose what they want to be upset about. So that holding call, you know, that was kind of called on the Bengals late is bullshit. But, you know, we're going to conveniently forget the fact that they don't get a touchdown if the referees don't completely blow the call and see that Jalen Ramsey it was a face mask on Jalen Ramsey. Nobody wanted to talk about that. You know, that's the thing. Nobody's talking about. And the argument for people who obviously are butthurt that the Bengals lost, and I get it, I'd be upset too. Their argument is, well, the referees weren't calling plays, so why did they fucking decide to call that? You know, this is the problem. The pressure gets much, much more intense as it gets to the end of the game, and they're more inclined to either make the call or swallow their whistle. They chose to make the call. But for me, it balances itself out. because that's a for me, the most egregious one is the Jalen Ramsey face mask, because it's pretty damn obvious, especially when you see it in replay. And I get it, hindsight and everything, but American football is not like VAR. It's not bullshit. Like, they actually have their shit together. And for the referees to miss that is pretty poor, because 9 times out of 10 in the regular season, they are throwing a flag like it's the 4th of July. For me, and let's not forget as well, Burrow still had a chance at the end to at least get a field goal and take it to overtime. They were around the 50-yard line. They didn't need to get too much more to have an attempt at least a field goal to tie the game, and he didn't make it. He didn't make the plays necessary. That doesn't mean that he wasn't clutch or that he didn't have a good game. It's just shit happens, man. And of course, the play that kind of pretty much ends it all, Aaron Donald bursts through, gets a sack. That's him in a nutshell. He is an assassin. He is stone cold. He's a killer, absolute killer. And that's pretty much the difference, is that the Bengals were pretty much firing on all but one cylinder, whereas the Rams were firing on all of them, and they just didn't get off the gas enough. But if you're the Bengals, you're sitting there thinking, this close. It's not like you get to rerun the game. You've got to go for a whole season again and see if you can do it. But the future's pretty bright. Joe Burrow is very young. He's got a good 10, 15 years ahead of him. And you know what? The AFC looks very, very strong in terms of weaponry. And I think there's going to be a lot of teams gunning for the crown that the Rams hold next season.
Yeah, I personally think it was a missed opportunity for the Bengals, really. I feel like they played a very good first half, even though they weren't in the lead. Joe Burrow was getting protected pretty well. He only got sacked one time in the first half as well. He was only sacked one time. I feel like the missed opportunity, obviously, they got a very big stroke of luck with the offensive pass interference call that wasn't called. And then they went and picked Matt Stafford off shortly after then. And having very good field position there, they weren't able to take advantage. And if they did take advantage in that period, the game could have actually been out of sight if they'd scored another touchdown off that, that pick. I feel like they would have been in a very strong position at that point, because after that, the game seemed to have lulled a bit. We only had a field goal for the next, I think it was 10, 12 minutes. There weren't much action until the touchdown at the end. But yeah, it was very much to and fro, 3 and outs and stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like once the Rams kind of smelt blood, once they got in that second and third time, it was very difficult for the Bengals. And what went right for them in the first half sort of, didn't work in the second half. And I mean, the Rams weren't even effective in all cylinders. They could not run the ball. I mean, I don't know what Cam Akers does, but clearly running effectively.
Let's be real though, the Rams don't have much of a running identity. Yeah. They've never have, not as a successful franchise. Maybe more so the last time when they got to the Super Bowl and faced the Patriots with Jared Goff in what might go down as arguably the most boring Super Bowl of all time. They've never been a big running identity, whereas the Bengals, they do have a big running identity, and it didn't leave them, but it just felt a little bit on the weak side. I mentioned how Cooper Kupp didn't go off, but he still had nearly 100 yards of receiving and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. And that was the difference, right? But it didn't feel like he had taken over the game. What he did do, however, is get great positioning and great yardage at times when they needed it most, when it was getting a lot more pressure and when it was on third down. He will make plays. That for me is so much more important. You can pad your stats and get 200 yards against, I don't know, the fucking Lions. That's great. But, can you make clutch plays in crucial games? And in the playoffs, he didn't let off the gas. And in the Super Bowl, he doesn't let off the gas. The guy who stood out to me, and he always does for the Bengals, and it wasn't enough, but he had a great game, was, is T. Higgins. He never gets any real love because you got Jamar Chase. It's all right, fine. Much more flashy, but Same with Tyler Boyd as well. Like, there's some really underrated talent on this team. The big question, if you're the Bengals going forward, is, can we maintain this kind of structure? Because there's going to be a lot of guys who are going, yo, where's my money? It's time to pay me. Pay me like I'm worth the talent that you see. And that's where you see the big hiccups now in modern football. One of the big reasons that the Patriots were so successful and so devastating for the best part of 20 years is because they were able to just completely recycle and re-roll contracts and talent. And Tom Brady would take a pay cut pretty much every year to kind of facilitate the salary cap. But if they felt the players wanted too much money, they were gone. There was no egos at all. It was the perfect team balance. And this is something now that the Bengals are going to have to address.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, they've got a lot of very underrated parts of their defense, and they did very well. They did very well in periods of the game. They did get to Stafford quite well.
They got picks as well, didn't they? They got two, and he threw two interceptions. Picks. Burrow didn't make any mistakes in that regard. He didn't throw any picks, so he didn't throw any interceptions. And if at the end of the game you told me that the guy who threw two picks, we talked about it on a preview, and we said the most important thing is turnovers, mistakes. Yeah. The team that makes the most mistakes is going to lose, and that was wrong because the Rams made more mistakes. It's just that the Rams had the more elite defense. If you're looking at it realistically, it's that elite D that pretty much saw them over the line, even when things got heated. But you are right. It is a bit of a missed opportunity. The Bengals had opportunities and didn't put them away. And that will really suck, especially if you're Joe Burrow, where you think, I just needed that extra 50 yards here and there offense. We just needed two more plays. There are a couple of times as well, dropped balls, same with Stafford as well on both sides. So it's not like it was kind of imbalanced, but you just feel that they needed just that extra little bit of magic, that extra little bit of explosive playing when it was needed. Jamar Chase had an okay game, but he probably, out of all the people who was kind of like up on this big marquee of stars, he's the guy who, for me, didn't deliver enough.
To be honest, if you elaborate as well, we're talking about missed opportunities and takeaways and mistakes. I think one of the bigger ones that may go under the radar was definitely in the first quarter, where the Bengals went for it on fourth down about the 45-yard line and didn't convert. And the Rams obviously turned that into a touchdown. And then we're talking about, obviously, the pick in the third quarter where the Rams give the ball back to the Bengals and the Bengals only go and put 3 on the board. And that's one of the more minute things that we're talking about here. But in the end of the day, that's a 4-point swing where, the Rams have converted off. Obviously, it's not a takeaway, but it's a turnover and downs. It's not going to go in the stat book as a giveaway or a takeaway, but that's 7 points that the Rams have got. Maybe they wouldn't have got it if the Bengals have punted the ball. Also, at the end, should they have, I know they were running short of time, but maybe they should have gone to Joe Mixon to get that extra yard on the fourth down. I don't know. There's some things, the bigger plays in the game seem to have gone the Rams' way, and that's probably why they ended up winning. They made the key plays at the key times.
Do you think Cooper Kupp should have won the MVP? Do you think he was worthy of it? I mean, he had a great game. I don't think he had the most explosive game I've ever seen, but he had 2 touchdowns. He was the most effective offensive player. Do you think that someone like an Aaron Donald maybe was slightly overlooked?
Yeah, I thought maybe Aaron Donald should have won it. I thought, to be honest, the game turned on defense really, rather than big offensive explosive plays, because for a large part of that second half, the Rams really much kept quiet by the Cincinnati defense. They did limit them very nicely. The game was very much ebbing and flowing, between the both sides. No one was scoring for that large 10-minute period after, obviously, that's the 2 quick Cincinnati scores in the first quarter. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think maybe Aaron Donald, maybe someone on defense, they all played very well. They all contributed to the victory. And I think their performance, solidified the Rams win. I think it was them that brought home the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, there was a series in the game, like you say, where it lulled out. And, there was a number of punts. And, the offense sort of was kind of nullified for a little while. These are two teams that get a feel for what the opposition is doing and then are able to shut it down pretty well after a while. It was slightly explosive at the beginning, and then all the nerves calmed down. All that went out of the way, and then all of a sudden the defense was like, all right, let's go to work. Let's do what we've been doing for, the best part of a year. This is what we've been doing all season. Let's make it count. The Bengals did very well on defense, but they don't have the pieces, the players. The Rams do. But from a positive aspect, so many cool things have come out of this. Von Miller picks up a second chip, and then he dedicates it to Demaryius Thomas. Something that hit all of us at Denver really hard. Losing Demaryius at 33 years old is that's not good. And that's life. That sucks. And to see him get a second chip and dedicated to him is beautiful. And a little part, the Broncos feel like it's like a tiny little win for them. I don't really care about that. It's not about, he used to play for us. I'm more happy that this man has shifted halfway through the season and has gone and got himself another Super Bowl. He's so deserving of that. And he's a Hall of Fame caliber player, always has been. And now he's got a second chip to prove that. And he puts himself in there with the all-time greats discussion on defense, guys like Ray Lewis, guys like Mean Joe Green and things of that nature. So, he's getting up there for that. Sean McVeigh, 36 years old, Super Bowl winning head coach. That's 36. Like I'm a year older than this motherfucker. And he's got himself a chip. Now, it's incredible. And he hinted at the idea that he might retire at a young age as well. So for him, it was actually really important. That's the thing for so many of these guys. Donald needed it and wanted it so badly. He didn't just want to be known as great defensive player who never wins a chip. You don't want to be known as the greatest defensive player of all time to never win jack shit, do you? You really don't want to be the Roddy Piper of NFL. And he got that chip. Sean McVay gets it at 36. Von Miller gets it. Matthew Stafford, a guy with infinite ability. And this goes to show bad management in franchises can hurt great players, because the Lions are notorious for stinking out the joint. They did again this season, despite having Jared Goff. Everyone's like, they got Jared Goff now, so they can get rid of Stafford, who's a perpetual loser. It was never anything to do with Stafford. And anyone who watched the Lions play on Stafford, even at the Lions, had like the most fourth quarter comebacks of any quarterback in the league. So, I don't want to hear that. He is clutch. He is world class. And it doesn't matter how good you are, you still need pieces around you. Brady has proven that, whether he's been at the Patriots, whether he's been at Tampa Bay, and all of them do that. All of them do that. That's where you lean more on possibly a Drew Brees. Because you look at his tenure as a quarterback at the Saints and think, you were perpetually in the playoffs and you got hosed a couple of times. Then, of course, ironically enough, the year they did win it, the one chip he does have, Bounty Gate, all that nonsense, a little bit shady. It's maybe not an asterisk, but enough to kind of make you think, you kind of sort of not cheated, but you bent the rules in your favor. You bent the wheel of the NFL rule book. And now I'm looking at Matthew Stafford, I'm thinking, right, he's there now. Like, he's there as one of the better quarterbacks. He can now consider himself elite, which is something we could never say about him, because you have to win a chip. Aaron Rodgers only has one. Drew Brees only has one. Brett Favre, I believe he's only got one. Like, these are all world-class elite players. Now we start looking at Matthew Stafford and thinking, okay, if you're going to stick around for a little bit, you have the potential to really push here. They've got a dynasty in place, brand new stadium, good vibes. Now it's becoming the anti-curse, isn't it? And we're looking at who's hosting the Super Bowl next year. They've obviously got a good chance of winning it.
Unless it's
for me,
Detroit.
look at the positives. Huh?
Unless it's Detroit.
Yeah, don't be having
Or
a Super Bowl.
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville can suck my chode, mate. And I know you like to keep things a little bit more PG around here than we do at WrestlePlug, but Jacksonville can suck my member. The Jaguars stink. You ain't my fucking franchise. You ain't Britain's team. Get back over there, and you can take that fucking gimboy to Tony Khan with you as well, mate. They got no time for Jacksonville. It's a joke franchise run by joke people, as far as I'm concerned. Ain't happening.
Yeah. That was
Sorted, mate.
yeah,
Sorted.
Yeah, Jacksonville. So we're gonna move on now. We'll go back to the Super Bowl after, but we're just gonna talk about what you think's gonna happen next year. You know, how do these two teams progress on to next year? Obviously the Rams, can they keep these pieces together? I feel like they're the lovable kind of, you know, some people hate the Rams, but they've got such, you know, lovable players. You know, people felt sorry for Odell. You know, they felt happy for people like Aaron Donald, for Matthew Stafford, for people like that. How do you feel that the Rams can improve on, you know, a Super Bowl next season? I know it's a dumb question to say, how can you improve on, you know, winning a championship, but what can they do to stay, you know, at the top of the, you know, tree in a league that's notoriously hard for a team to go back to back?
The advantage they have, Jeremy Miller alluded to this in our group chat a little bit, of course, not in the most intelligent and eloquent way because he's Jeremy Miller. But, the NFC is looking really weak in terms of offensive quarterbacks, offensive weapons. Because, you know, hate to break it, Cowboys fans, you just ain't getting it done. Probably never will, because there ain't no winning mentality at that franchise. They can suck my chode as well. I know that's your team. I could give them down. Like, you know, nobody likes the Cowboys anymore. Do you know what? The Cowboys remind me of Arsenal in the, you know, the British Football League. Like, you know, all this flash, all this beautiful style, and they don't win jack. not anything that matters. You know, they are perpetually fourth. That's how they feel. For me, the Rams, if they keep the pieces and they keep the franchise together the way you would like to, and obviously I don't know all the details involved, salary cap, whose contract's right, who isn't, who's getting paid, who's not, but you keep all those pieces together, they've got a good chance of at least getting back to the Super Bowl, minimum. That's what they should be thinking. They've got the head coach. They've got the coaching staff in place. They've got the pieces in place, and if they're going to keep those for at least a season or two, they should be getting back to the Super Bowl, because I'm looking around the NFC. Okay, you know, everyone's always talking about Green Bay and Rodgers. Is Rodgers going to go again? We don't know. He's kind of gone from being the most beautifully talented and most dangerous quarterback to kind of being the perennial choker, you know, and that goes for the entire franchise. I will say one thing, the Packers and Rodgers in particular just don't have the weapons. As, you know, you look at the Rams. There's no Cooper Kupp running around at Green Bay. So for me, I'm looking at the Rams and thinking definitely a Super Bowl. The Bengals, however, they're in big trouble because this was the moment. This was the chance. Next season, Pittsburgh re-roll. They're going to be fitter. They may not necessarily be as talented, particularly as I think Big Ben has called it. So, and then you've got, obviously, Baltimore. You're expecting Lamar Jackson to be on fire, well-rested, hopefully rehab well from his injury. Cleveland, you've got to think, are going to improve on what was, frankly, quite a poor run this season by their standards. So not only is that's just in their division. Then you look outside. We've noticed that Jones has kind of become the heir to the throne at New England's. Josh Allen and the Bills, you know, this close again for 2 seasons running, denied in an insatiable shootout with the Chiefs, who also are going to be there or thereabouts looking to kick some serious ass, especially with Pat Mahomes, who is no doubt the most talented athlete of all the quarterbacks out there. Not as clutch, if you ask me, but he does have a Super Bowl, and he's young too. So you know the Chiefs are going to be there. That's a lot of different threats and weapons, and that's not to mention some of the teams that are going to look to re-roll. Obviously, as a Denver fan, I want to see Denver compete. Just getting in the playoffs would be a massive achievement. That's all I care about, because they haven't made the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl at 50. So that's 6 seasons without the playoffs. That's not good enough. New head coach, hopefully, you know, a very offensive-minded guy, looking to draft a quarterback. If they get that right, they could end up being dangerous. The Raiders, they snuck in despite all the nonsense that was going on around them. I think the AFC is so dangerous and so talented. The NFC, on the other hand, they got a lot to do, and there's a lot of talk that, you know, the Seahawks stunk the joint out this year. So you're looking at Arizona as really the only other threat I would personally consider. Now, they are in the Rams division, and ironically enough, they host the next Super Bowl. So, you know, there's a lot of fire, there's a lot of incentive there. And Kyler Murray is, for me, the most talented athlete in the NFC. But again, there seems to be a disconnect when they hit the playoffs. They seem to kind of struggle a little bit. I know they got dumped up by the Rams, I believe, last season. You know, Kyler Murray, he picks up niggling injuries. It's quite a long... People don't realize that. They think, oh, it's only 17 games. That's a long way to go when you play a high-impact sport like this. It's physical. It's bad. For me, I would put my money on the Rams getting close to a Super Bowl again, or at least getting deep in the playoffs. The Bengals... You know, they've got the quarterback and they've got some of the offensive weapons, but the difference is that other teams can play them really tough. In the NFC, I feel like the Rams could just abuse a lot of that, you know, that conference in general and their division as well. They can bully people. They've got the defense to bully and abuse people. The same way that Pittsburgh did with the Steel Curtain. The same way the Bears did with that vaunted defense in 85. The same way the Broncos did when they won Super Bowl 50 with what they affectionately called the no-fly zone. You know, the Legion of Boom as well at Seattle. Great defenses win titles, and people don't want to talk about that because that ain't fanciful. That ain't exciting to talk about in the media. Nobody wants to talk about rough and tough Aaron Donald abusing people. They want to talk about, look at the glamorous and beautiful Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, their connection. Look at Tom Brady. Look at Pat Mahomes. Look at all the shiny pieces. But it's the engine room. It's the mucky, dirty, nasty, gruff footballers, the guys who absorb and take hits and put them on people. That really is what is the engine room. That's the spine of what makes a great Super Bowl franchise. The Rams have that. If you're looking at what's going to happen for these two franchises alone, and we're not looking at predictions anywhere else, Rams potentially back in the Super Bowl. Bengals going to have to work twice as hard. And also, people are aware of what you can do now, and they're gunning for you.
Yeah, 100% agree with you here. As I mentioned in the preview, I said that obviously the Bengals got a bit of luck with injuries for other teams, and I don't feel like they'll have that kind of same, you know, luck next year. Obviously, they were relatively healthy. They're going to play a harder schedule, obviously, winning the division. You obviously play a harder schedule as well. You play the top teams in the other divisions. People are obviously going to take them more seriously. People are going to do their homework more. I know they do their homework. Coaches do their homework on teams anyway. But yeah, people are going to be coming for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we also didn't mention a few more teams in the AFC that are decent threats towards playoff places, like the Chargers, the Titans, the Colts, even maybe the Dolphins, if they can sort out a quarterback. You know, they've got a pretty good defense as well.
Dolphins think, mate. Don't get it twisted. Dolphins ain't doing jack. Like, I'm not having that nonsense. Like, as a man who loves Miami as well, especially the Miami Heat, who are perennial tough bastards as well. No, Dolphins not having that nonsense. Behave yourself. You know, you've got to have something on offense. They ain't got jack. You know, you've mentioned a couple of other teams there who could potentially, like the Chargers. Again, a lot of it's huff and puff, but they're not getting out of their division. The thing is, as well, they're in there with the Chiefs and the Raiders, who, let's be fair, this is the season where we were thinking, oh, Justin Herbert's going to get it done. Yeah, he's going to take over. He's going to start firing on all cylinders. And what the hell happened? Well, they lost out to the Raiders in what was essentially a wild card of its own just for that division. They lost out. So, you know, obviously those teams are going to play hard, but I just don't think they have a winning mentality. Chargers, Dolphins, teams like that, they remind me of the Cowboys. They do have some talent, and they do have historically, especially the Dolphins, obviously, historically very famous kind of franchise, but history doesn't mean jack. Because if it did, the LA Rams would have still been around all that time instead of leaving town for as long as they did. So, it's I hate to disagree, but I don't think the Dolphins are getting close, and especially in a division where the Bills and the Patriots, the Bills have just come on fire, and obviously the Patriots are starting to reset too. So they're going to have a hard time overturning them. But they also do get 2 gimmies when they play the Jets, who are, like the Barnsley of the NFL. So
Yeah, Derby County in the NFL.
That's hard.
Yeah.
At least, but Derby got an excuse. At least they had some points in the first place. Barnsley is just shit, isn't it? Plus, they got to go back to Barnsley.
Yeah.
Ain't no luck.
It's not Sheffield, is it? Or Leeds?
Nah. No. And those places aren't fantastic either, being real.
Yeah. So that comes to the end of the show. Obviously, thank you to Aeron for his time as usual. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and we will see you in the next one.